everyone, this is an advanced video, so if you are not an advanced Bitcoin user, you can skip this one, just ignore it, not relevant to you, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so the question, which is a hotly debated thing in the world of advanced Bitcoin users, is whether the Bitcoin blockchain should be ever used for anything other than transferring Bitcoin around. So the Bitcoin blockchain is a database. It's a database that keeps track of how much Bitcoin everyone has, which is a $2 trillion valuable sort of thing. So it is the most valuable single database in the world, which is who owns what of Bitcoin. And that's its primary use. But inevitably, technology being the flexible thing it is, people figured out how to do creative things with it. So it is possible to etch other information into the Bitcoin blockchain other than just monetary transactions. Now, I won't go all into all the details of how people have figured out how to do that. But I'll just use a simple illustration. So the terminology people often use for these things, like is people using Operaturn, or people using ordinals or inscriptions, or all sorts of stuff. But let me give you an example of how you could etch something in the Bitcoin blockchain. So right now, the smallest unit of a Bitcoin is a Satoshi, which is 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin. Almost nobody moves Satoshis around individually or in super small units, because it makes no sense to pay a 40-cent transaction fee to move 1/10 of a cent of value. Let's assume I wanted to use the Bitcoin blockchain to spell something. Let's say I wanted it to spell "I love Rachel," my wife. She's great. She's fantastic. And I wanted to spell "I love Rachel" on the Bitcoin blockchain. Well, how could I go about doing that? Well, for example, each letter of the alphabet, I could assign 1 through 26, and I could move a transaction with 9 Satoshis for the letter I. And then I could do a transaction with 12 Satoshis for the letter L, and then 15 Satoshis for the letter O. And I think it's 22 Satoshis for the letter V, something like that. And then 5 Satoshis for the letter E. So I love Rachel. 18 Satoshis for the letter R, 1 Satoshi for the letter A, 3 for the letter C, uh, 8 for the letter H, 5 for the letter E, and 12 for the letter L. Anyway, maybe I messed up either the order of those letters or the increment on the 26 letters. But if you saw the Bitcoin blockchain and you saw the same Bitcoin user, even though you didn't know it was me, you saw the same, somebody who owns, a tenth of a Bitcoin, start making a bunch of small transactions like that, and you strung them all together and you figured nobody moves tiny little bits of Bitcoin around in such small units, and you started adding them up and you said, oh, I see what he's doing here. He's using 1 through 26 Satoshis to spell letters, and he has spelled "I love Rachel" in the Bitcoin blockchain. Well, there's no way anybody can stop me from doing that, because you don't know I'm spelling "I love Rachel." What if I was paying somebody 9 Satoshis for something, which is less than 1 penny? What if I just wanted to pay someone on the internet less than 1 penny to do something for me, or to thank them for a message on the messaging platform Nostr? And I just wanted to zap them some sats, and I just happened to zap them 9 sats. And then I zapped the same person 12 sats. You don't know that I'm spelling the letter L, the 12th letter of the alphabet, or am I just spending 12 sats? Anyway, there's a lot more sophisticated and complex ways of doing it versus something simple like that. But the bottom line is, you can't stop people from making the Bitcoin blockchain do things and say things, because it moves monetary value, and you can use that monetary value to represent other things. One of the most significant was a year or two back. The government of Guatemala used the Bitcoin blockchain to etch vote totals into the Bitcoin blockchain as the votes were coming in from the remote provinces of Guatemala, so that they could not be manipulated later. So, you've got this remote province, and it's 27 votes for one person and 46 votes for another person. They etched that onto the Bitcoin blockchain like every hour or whatever it was, so that when all the votes got mixed together at headquarters, and somebody allocated a different vote total than that, because there's all sorts of electioneering that happens often in countries, in lots of countries, when all that electioneering happened, you couldn't go back and change the vote totals because the Bitcoin blockchain, which is this absolutely immutable record, says this is how many votes came from each province at 8 p.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 12 a.m., or 12 p.m., 1 p.m. You can't go back and change those because all of those are indelibly, unchangeably etched into the Bitcoin blockchain. Now, is that a valuable use of the Bitcoin blockchain? It is. But people who are monetary purists have a lot of heartburn about the Bitcoin blockchain, including any data in it that is not purely financial transactions. Personally, I think it's pretty cool that you can do small things. You can't do big things in the Bitcoin blockchain because it's limited to one. The way it's limited is effectively between 1 and 4 megabytes per 10 minutes. So there's not much you can do there. You can't stream an entire movie. You can barely even, embed images. If you do try to embed an image into the Bitcoin blockchain, it's very pixelated, very basic. Like it can't store large amounts of information, but it can store vote totals from a Guatemalan election. It can store short messages and things like that. But of course, you have to pay transaction fees. So if I wanted to spell "I love Rachel," every character is going to cost me 40 cents right now. Well, that's a very expensive message by the time you're writing out. If you try to write something long in the Bitcoin blockchain, it gets very expensive. And you're basically paying all of that to the Bitcoin miners to include those transactions in the blockchain, just like you would pay the Bitcoin miners if you were paying them to include any other message in the blockchain. So my view is there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, the Bitcoin blockchain can be used however people want to use it, as long as they pay the transaction fees. The fact that there is some messages in there and vote totals from Guatemala alongside financial transactions is so what? There's a limit to how big the Bitcoin blockchain can be every 10 minutes anyway. So there's not a way for it to end up bloated with a ton of stuff in it because again, by definition, it's limited to between 1 megabyte and 4 megabytes per 10 minutes, which in a world of gigabit Ethernet is frankly, a very tiny amount. So anyway, I think the whole extremely heated argument about it is basically a nothing burger. A nothing burger meaning it's nothing. It means people are going to debate it all day long. And I just think it doesn't matter. The Bitcoin blockchain, by its nature, cannot end up bloated because of the space limitations that are set by the protocol. And if some people want to, from time to time, include messages or include any other information, so be it. It's not really hurting anything in any meaningful way, and there are very valuable uses. Again, like the Guatemalan election and things like that, where it actually is extremely valuable to have something like that etched forever in a way that humans cannot change it to rig a system. So hope that helps. Thanks, everyone.